I used to have a friend that said none of us meet each other by accident. All of us are by divine appointment. That is, that God called each of us together at a time that he selected. In the first lesson, we heard of one such encounter that had the possibility to change history. Philip is walking along a wilderness road and encounters a eunuch from Ethiopia. The treasurer, in fact. He reads the scroll of the prophet Isaiah and is totally confused. Philip is given an opportunity to change history at this point, history that would affect an entire country, just due to one chance meeting. We hear that the man, that is, eunuchs are all men, served the court of Queen Candace as her treasurer. Now imagine, if you will, what one of us would do if we encountered the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, and he happens to pull out the Gideon Bible, and he stumbles upon a verse that he doesn't understand. It's one of these kinds of encounters. We don't hear much about Philip. He is a shining moment in the scriptures. We know him to have been ordained by the disciples as part of one of the first group ordinations of deacons. Philip is sent out on this road for reasons we don't know, and the passage seems even more interesting that he's so caught up in the moment that he mysteriously finds himself in another place as if no time has elapsed. I think I know what happened. When people come to faith, it is always the action of the Holy Spirit. The eunuch did not will his conversion. Rather, the Holy Spirit had made him receptible for conversion. Philip, too, was directed by the Holy Spirit. Now, their meeting and the eunuch's confusion and Philip's response, the availability of water for baptism, all of this was by God's directive. And I think we can learn something about our own lives based on those events. First, God creates these situations. We do not. We might think that these things happened only in Bible times, but they still happen. And you, simply because you believe, may be called into one of these situations. Always trust that God will give you what you need to know when you need to know it. We have no evidence that Philip was learned. There were no seminaries or deacon schools in those days. Philip was chosen simply because he was a servant of others, called to be a leader in a way that Jesus said leaders of the church ought to be, servants. Secondly, God prepares the heart. If you are called to fill in the blanks of another person's faith questions, either God will make sure that you know exactly how to answer those questions by some prior education or prior experience, or he will give you the response that you need at that time. It won't even come from your own head. It will be something that comes almost spontaneously from you. We don't know if Philip had the knowledge already, or whether Philip was prompted by the Holy Spirit with words that were simply the Spirit's. Either way, God does not send us into any situation unprepared. Finally, when the Holy Spirit makes these kinds of things happen, we need not worry about what will happen. It's not our job to be successful. It is not our job to make other people believe. That is the Holy Spirit's job. And we are just the mouth through whom he speaks. Now notice, though, that the eunuch does know about baptism. God had made water to stay there, and like we know here in the desert of Yuma, that's not exactly an easy task. It's like trying to pour water on a sponge. Water's scarce. And in all likelihood, the water that they walked into wasn't very deep. Just enough to do a baptism. And that doesn't require very much water at all. We need always trust that God will give us just enough. Now, the story closes with Philip on his way, as if nothing else happened. And I know this kind of joy personally. It's almost like hypnosis. You're riding the high of the event. Much like a powerful church service, it is on my mind all the time, like when I'm driving home, oh, saints preserve us, or if I'm out shopping and all of a sudden the images from the day happen to play again in my head. And it seems like no time at all has elapsed. My brothers and sisters, God's joy will always abound in us when we share our faith with a new believer. Trust Him to give you the words needed to help another person in their journey of faith. Rest in the joy that you're fulfilling God's purpose here. God may just be preparing someone for you to talk to and reach.